the shadows of the glittering C-biz landscape, there is a recurring image that has become almost ritualistic. A man draped in silk, his face pale, gasping for air as blood trickles from the corner of his lips. This is the image of Cheng Yi, the undisputed king of Heartbreak, an actor whose career seems built on a foundation of exquisite suffering. For years, millions of fans have wept for his characters, captivated by the raw vulnerability he pours into every tragic frame. But as the cameras stop rolling and the artificial blood is wiped away, a much more chilling question begins to surface in the silence of the industry. Is the pain we see on screen merely a performance, or is it a reflection of a deeper, more systemic entrapment? While his peers fight for independence and scramble to escape the rigid grip of traditional management, Cheng Yi remains the silent pillar of a fading empire. He has become the ultimate industrial masterpiece of H&R Century, a talent so refined that he has been turned into a sacrificial lamb for the sake of corporate survival. Why does one of the most bankable stars of his generation continue to walk the same repetitive path of agony, supporting endless waves of newcomers while his own artistic potential is squeezed dry? Behind the king of blood-spitting lies a hidden contract of loyalty that borders on tragedy. Today, we peel back the layers of the velvet curtain to examine not the actor, but the asset. We are diving deep into the machinery that transformed a late bloomer into a golden goose, trapped in a cycle of beautiful misery. This is not just a story of fame. It is a clinical look at how the silent system consumes its most devoted subjects. But to understand the cage, we must first look at the man before. He became its most prized prisoner. Before he was the man who made the world weep, Cheng Yi was a name that the industry almost forgot. His story doesn't begin with a silver spoon or an overnight miracle. It begins with a decade of silence. For nearly 10 years, he was a face in the background, a shadow in the corner of the frame, moving through a series of forgettable roles while the spotlight shone elsewhere. This long period of obscurity is crucial to understanding why he eventually became the most loyal servant of the system. Unlike the idols who are manufactured in a year, Cheng Yi's foundation was built on the desperate patience of someone who knew exactly what it felt like to be invisible. When he finally broke through, it wasn't just his acting that caught the eye of the giants at H&R Century. It was his resilience. They didn't just see a talented artist. They saw a blank canvas that was willing to endure anything for a chance to stay in the light. In his early interviews, you can see a man who is profoundly humble, almost to a fault. Someone who speaks of his career with a sense of immense debt. This psychological trait became the perfect entry point for the silent system. He wasn't just an employee. He was a believer in the hand that finally fed him. By the time the world met him as the leads in massive Xianxia productions, the public image was already set. The hardworking, stoic, and endlessly enduring actor. But behind that image of the tragic hero was a man whose personal boundaries were beginning to blur with corporate needs. He was no longer just Cheng Yi. He was the standard bearer. In the quiet corridors of the industry, he was known as the actor who never complained, the one who would film through injuries, and the one who would accept any script handed down by the board of directors. He had achieved the dream of fame, but at the cost of becoming the most valuable and the most compliant cog in a very large machine. The turning point for Cheng Yi was not a single scandal, but a series of calculated corporate decisions that shifted his identity from an actor to a revenue stream. After the gargantuan success of Love and Redemption, the industry expected him to ascend to the elite circles of cinema or high-budget experimental dramas. However, the silent system had other plans. While his contemporaries were diversifying their portfolios, Cheng Yi was pulled back into the familiar, exhausting cycle of Xianxia and idol dramas produced internally by his agency. The catalyst was the realization that H&R Century was facing a massive talent drain. With the departure of previous pillars like Li Yifeng and Yang Zi, The company's financial stability rested almost entirely on Cheng Yi's shoulders. The trigger was not a loud explosion, but a quiet, binding necessity. He was forced into the role of a nanny actor, bao mu, a term used in Cbiz for a top star who must lead projects primarily designed to launch the careers of younger, less experienced trainees from the same company. This shift marked the beginning of a professional paradox. On the outside, he was winning awards and topping data charts. On the inside, he was trapped in a grueling production line, filming back-to-back projects with nearly identical character archetypes. Each role demanded the same emotional exhaustion, the same physical toll, and the same tragic ending. The system had found its golden formula, and Cheng Yi was the only one paying the price in blood, both literal and metaphorical. The silent rule was clear. His personal artistic growth was secondary to the company's need for a guaranteed hit. As the machinery of the industry tightened its grip, the conflict shifted from a struggle for fame to a struggle for autonomy. In the silent system, the most dangerous trap is not failure, but a very specific kind of success, the kind that makes you indispensable to a corporate entity while making you interchangeable in the eyes of the artistic elite. Cheng Yi found himself caught in a three-way collision between his agency's financial survival, the public's thirst for repetitive tropes, and his own identity as a professional actor. The first layer of this conflict lies in the agency star paradox. According to financial records from H&R Century, a staggering percentage of the company's annual revenue became dependent on a single individual, Cheng Yi. This created an invisible wall around him. While other actors of his caliber were collaborating with great directors, Dao, to transition into the prestigious mainstream circle, Zhangju, Cheng Yi was repeatedly assigned to internal productions. This was not a lack of talent, but a lack of permission. Every month he spent filming a high-quality independent film was a month his agency lost its most profitable product. The second layer is the conflict with public perception. The system capitalized on his ability to portray exquisite pain, leading to a phenomenon known as aesthetic fatigue. Critics began to question if he was a versatile actor or simply a specialist in a very narrow genre. The conflict here is profound. To keep the traffic, Lu Liang, flowing, he had to keep suffering on screen, but to earn the respect of the industry, he had to stop. He was being forced to choose between the fans who loved his tears and the peers who valued his range. Finally, there is the internal conflict, the toll on the man himself. Reports from film sets often describe Cheng Yi as a workaholic who pushes his body to the absolute limit, often refusing body doubles for intense action sequences or grueling emotional scenes. But within the silent system, this dedication is a double-edged sword. The more he gave, the more the system demanded. His silence was not a sign of contentment, but a sign of a professional who understood that in this industry, the moment you stop being useful is the moment you are replaced. He wasn't just fighting for better scripts. He was fighting to prove that he was more than just a highly efficient emotional machine. The tension within this silent system reached its peak when the physical and psychological toll on Cheng Yi became impossible for the public to ignore. In the industry, this is known as the collapse of the model student. The climax didn't come from a rebellion or a loud walkout, but from the terrifying sight of a human being pushed beyond the limits of biological endurance. During the filming of several high-intensity projects, reports surfaced of Cheng Yi sustaining serious injuries, including a significant leg injury, yet he was seen returning to the set almost immediately, supported by braces and sheer willpower. This is where the mask of the tragic hero cracked. The climax was the realization by the audience that the blood-spitting they saw on screen was no longer just a poetic aesthetic. It was a metaphor for his actual career. The system had become so dependent on his output that it could no longer afford him the time to heal. Social media erupted not with gossip, but with a profound sense of injustice. Fans and industry observers began to point fingers at the silent system of H&R Century. accusing the agency of vampiric management, draining the life force of their top star to keep a sinking corporate ship afloat. The explosion happened when the data finally met reality. Despite being at the top of every popularity index, Cheng Yi appeared increasingly isolated. He was winning the data war, but losing the career war. The climax was the moment of stagnation in success. He was the most famous actor who was simultaneously the most trapped. It was a paradox that forced everyone to look at the ugly truth, that in Cbiz, loyalty is often rewarded with more exploitation, and the more you give to the system, the less of yourself you are allowed to keep. The silent pressure had finally turned into a visible cage. The aftermath of Cheng Yi's relentless journey within the silent system offers a sobering reflection on the price of professional absolute loyalty. Today, his career stands as a monument to both peak endurance and the structural limitations of the Chinese entertainment industry. While he remains a titan of traffic and a guarantee of commercial success, the long-term impact on his artistic trajectory is profound. He has become the standard, but in doing so, he has been denied the metamorphosis that usually accompanies an actor of his caliber moving into the elite cinematic echelons. The industry's attitude toward him has shifted from viewing him as a mere idol to recognizing him as a victim of efficiency. His case has sparked a wider conversation about the sustainability of the agency-centric model, where the individual is sacrificed for the collective survival of a corporation. Public sentiment has evolved from simple admiration to a deep, protective empathy, a realization that his silent endurance is not a lack of ambition, but a heavy burden of responsibility toward the people who gave him his first chance after a decade of obscurity. Ultimately, the story of Cheng Yi is a masterclass in the silent system's greatest paradox: that the most reliable bridge for a company is often the one being walked upon until it breaks. His journey teaches us that in the world of Cbiz, talent is the fuel, but loyalty is the engine. And sometimes, the engine is run until it is completely depleted. He remains at the top, a king in a cage of his own making, still spattering blood for the cameras while the system quietly prepares its next masterpiece of misery. As we look at the pale face and the bloodied robes of his next character, we must ask ourselves, are we witnessing the peak of an actor's craft? Or are we watching the slow, beautiful consumption of a man by a system that refuses to let him heal? Perhaps the most silent rule of all is that the ones who give the most are the ones the system is least likely to set free.